Yeah, you have some.
Happy Monday.
Hey.
Everybody put your hand up in the air. Okay, now, raise your hand if you want to come up here and do an experiment where you'll be really uncomfortable and embarrassed in front of people. No, the hands are starting to go down. That was a joke. That was a joke. You know what I like about it? A lot of you were like, what else? Okay, yeah, I'm down. Honey, here, hold my beer. Okay. Gary, you keep your shirt on. Like, you got this.
Maybe.
Okay.
No promises.
So, welcome. One of the things in my life that I've learned is that perspective is so key. I want everybody to hold up, and this isn't a trick this time. Okay, please hold up one hand. Now hold up your index finger, Gary, your finger. And what I want you to do is place the finger in front of the hand, and I want you to focus on the finger. The finger stands for your challenges, your issues, your fears, your worries, your responsibilities and stresses. The hand represents the solution. Now I want you to defocus your eyes off your finger and refocus them on the hand behind them. When you do that, what happens to your visual perception of your finger?
Goes away.
Yeah, it's like you can see right through it. And that's the power of perspective. So what we're going to talk about tonight is a sense of control, freedom, and empowerment that is unmatched by anything else that's out there. And I know, because I've studied this stuff for 2.5 decades and I've worked with 20,000 people all over the world. And it wasn't until the last 12 months that I had something change. It's not supposed to be like this. We take for granted that the violence in the world, most people's propensity to feel unfulfilled in their lives, and getting caught up with fear and anxiety with current events and the news, etc., is just the norm and the way things have to be. It's just the way of the world. 70% of people suffer from physical and mental health issues as a result of the stress in their lives, and humanity has lost its way and we've forgotten our true power. I've worked on myself for the last 25 years as a sober member in the recovery community. I've also worked on myself with my ADHD for the last 20 plus years and done everything from life coaches to therapists to neurofeedback to workshops and retreats and something called TMS, brain stimulation, and a variety of other things. And as I said, I've worked with 20,000 people internationally on skills they need to achieve their goals in their careers to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And all of that said, it wasn't until this last year that I found the keystone to unlock all of it and catapult me into another level of existence in my life. And I don't say that with any hyperbole. Energy is the root cause of 99% of people's physical and mental health issues. And as a result of tapping into that information and applying it in my own life, I've been able to get off of 6 different medications I was taking for anxiety, depression, and ADHD. I've been able to lose 25 pounds without limiting my diet or working out. I've developed a deep sense of empathy that I've never had, and it's enriched every one of my personal relationships. And I have a mental clarity that I have been searching for and feeling daunted by not having my entire life, where I am now setting up and knocking out goals that I've had for myself for years and had resigned myself that I probably wasn't going to achieve them. It's not supposed to be like this, and it doesn't have to be. So I'm going to take you on a journey and share with you what my experience has been, but don't just take my word for these things. Do your own research. Because it's one thing to share something with you, but when you start having your own experiences, it takes on a whole different level of momentum and appreciation and the power of the things that we're going to review. So a little bit about me, just kind of high level. Again, I've been in the corporate world for 20 plus years, as a professional speaker, trainer, and coach. I mostly teach salespeople how to sell and managers how to lead people. And I've been able to work for big companies in the tech industry mostly, but I've worked for startups as well and kind of all around, and I do a variety of things. Mostly been in the corporate world, worked with a lot of people. 25 years sober in 12-step recovery, as I said, and I do a lot. I speak and tell my life story to AA conferences and conventions and things as much as I speak in my career profession in the corporate space. So there's some overlap with some of that stuff. ADHD life hacker, wife and 5 kids, and I like to scuba dive when I can get out there. So I saw this and it really resonated, this meme. I thought it was great. What people think a spiritual awakening is like versus what it's actually like. And so, I've thrown the phrase around in AA. It even says in our book, it talks about a spiritual awakening in AA Big Book, which I know inside and out. I've sponsored people for years and do the steps and all that stuff. But when you really go through something and you open your pineal gland and you start to see things and you go, am I a crazy person? Some people are looking at me like I'm crazy because I'm sharing too much. I've learned, there are levels and layers. I now get it when they're like secret societies where they only share so much and then you reach a certain degree and then they share the next piece of information with you. And I used to think, oh, that's underhanded. It's like they want you to spend all this time so you're committed once you learn it. They should tell everybody right up front. I've learned not to share everything up front. I've learned breadcrumbs work best because the limbic mind will freak out and go, because your brain wants to protect you and make you feel safe, and if you learn too much too soon, it can kind of freak you out. There's a great metaphor in change management called How to Boil a Frog. Has anybody ever heard of it? Mm-hmm. And it's a metaphor. I'm not pitching animal cruelty, but How to Boil a Frog goes like this. If you've got a pot of boiling water and you throw this poor frog into it, again, it's a metaphor, but if you do that, the frog will freak out because it's too hot, it'll jump out. But if you put the frog in room temperature water and you set it on to boil, as it slowly heats up, the frog will never leave. And even though it gets to that temperature at first, it will just lay about because it's more gradual. And so there's about half a dozen debriefs on that as a metaphor, but 1 or 2 are around change management and how you change things in degrees and get people comfortable and ease people into new practices, ideas, etc. And there's a lot of wisdom in that based on how our brains work and being able to balance the comfort zone, the stretch zone, and the panic zone. And so if you're in the stretch zone, you can learn, hey, this is a little bit new for me. I'm trying some things out. I'm practicing new things. I kind of have to pay attention because this isn't a natural thing for me. I'm building some skills. But if you're in the panic zone and you're in fight or flight mode, there's no learning there. You're just like, I got to get me out of here. And so there's a lot to be said for that, to knowing yourself. So who here can read? Nobody? Yeah? A couple people? All right. I like to mix it up, So let's do this. If you could, can you humor me? And you're what I call a victim of proximity. And the microphone cord only goes so long. Can you read out loud what that slide says for me, please?
Sure. A spiritual awakening is not usually pleasant. Often it feels like confusion, frustration, anger, sadness, grief, or being out of place. This can be uncomfortable and challenging because it's an intense time of personal growth. But despite how difficult it may feel, you're not going crazy. You're evolving, awakening.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, I intoned a little Elvis there without meaning to. And so, but like I said, there's a couple things I want to get out of the way. One is cognitive dissonance. Anybody know what cognitive dissonance is? Big 50-cent word. It's just, it's similar to what I was saying about the limbic brain trying to protect you, where you hear something, it's new, it's different, it's uncomfortable, and if it challenges something, a belief structure you already have, that you ascribe meaning to, that usually actually doesn't even have anything to do with the belief structure. It's the comfort of, because maybe your parents taught it to you and you love your parents, and so because of that, it happens a lot with religion. I can't even, we could spend 2 hours on just that. But things like that where you ascribe so much to it and it's so sacred, where it's really not about the ideas, it's about the people you care about and the comfort that gave you. And so not everybody's able to separate the two, to be able to hold up and say, is this something I believe or is it something that I know? And there's a guy I really like who does a whole talk on the difference between believing and knowing something that goes 2 hours and you would think, I'll be bored out of my mind. And it's actually fascinating stuff. And I was like, man, that's a good point. Because until you're open and willing to have new ideas and conceptions, what your mind will do is support the narrative that you ascribe to it. So if you go, this is nonsense, then your mind will support that so that you can hold on to that belief so you stay in comfort. The core of the root of the word dis-ease. Dis-ease. I like ease and comfort. I like being comfortable. So if I'm in dis-ease, my body doesn't like it, my brain doesn't like it. So not everybody is ready or willing to be open to being comfortable, being uncomfortable, to take in new information. And that's okay. But it's important to call it for what it is, because you don't want to step on somebody else's toes that wants to have an experience. And so, plant medicine impacts. So plant medicine as a springboard to spiritual awakening is really what this is about. I was very, very, very cautious about engaging with plant medicine as someone who is a member of the recovering community. Sobriety is very important to me, and I hold it very sacred. I sponsor a lot of people. I've done a lot of work in AA, and I wanted to make sure that if I did this at all, I was going to do it correctly. And so I went into some groups and I learned about microdosing, and I read all the different articles, and I talked to different people. And I remember talking to my sponsor, and I said, "What do you think, Bill?" And he said, "Well, I know a lot of people would say that would be a relapse. But he said, what I know is that I've seen a lot of the data on it. It supports it. And even in recovery, we say, look, if you need medicine that is narcotic or whatever that changes your state of mind, and it's medicinal, that you should take it. As my first sponsor used to say, get off the cross, we need the wood. When someone say, oh, I just need to bear it in pain because I'm in recovery. Well, no, if you legitimately need the medicine, and you're going to be in a place of instability because the level of pain is that intense, take the medicine. That's always been a thing. And he said, think about it now, where people get ketamine infusions. Well, back when I was partying, ketamine was something called, I never did it, but it's called Special K, and they did it at raves. Well, now you can get ketamine infusions for medicine. Well, it's okay now, but then it wasn't. So it's the same kind of principle. And he said, look, you know about this stuff. I know you take your recovery seriously. And I really did. I made sure I was doing it by the book. I got a MAPS therapist on psychedelic integration, and I really focused in on intention, set and setting, and what's my mindset, and what physical setting am I in to be able to have these therapeutic experiences, because I wanted to make sure that I was doing this correctly. So we're going to start with facts. I like facts, because start talking about things that are deemed sometimes metaphysical, mystical, whatever. But the great news is, for everything out there that sounds a little bit, that gives you the hairy eyeball, like, I don't know about that, there's facts. Most are around quantum science to back it up. So let's look at a fact. How psilocybin mushrooms free the mind? So essentially, what that means is it creates new neural pathways in the brain to make connections to allow our brains to be able to operate at a higher level of perception and intellectual capacity from an executive functioning standpoint. Okay, that is a fact. They have proven that. You can look at that. Allows us to see more. See more? What do you mean? Well, I'm glad you asked. Facts. Again, big fan of the facts. I saw an article. I was in this journey of plant medicine. This blew my mind. Check this out. So, people who sit in shamanic journeys and spiritual healing on psychedelic mushrooms report seeing complex patterns of dimensional limitlessness. Fractals. There's pretty colored shapes that are in the air, right? The little is a part of the identical whole, representing the interconnectedness and infiniteness of life. This is not a hallucination. That, for me, was like mind-blowing. I'm like, wait, what? I'm sorry, what? And I read there's a whole article, there's a link to it here. I'll make these available if anybody wants them. And then down there, our brain is not just forming these images, we are just now able to see what has always been there, and research has shown that the psychedelic experience actually creates a hyper-connected brain, bringing normally dormant networks to life, and puts the default mode network to sleep temporarily. That rocked my world. So before then, when I was doing my journeys, I was like, I'd get in my office, I've got this very comfortable setup, and laying back, and I got a blanket, and I got something to drink, and I would just kind of close my eyes, and I had this wonderful soundtrack I would listen to kind of get in a good space, and I just would focus on my intention. Do I want to look at getting out of fear? Do I want to look at being a better dad? Do I want to look at, and anybody that's, I'm assuming you're here because you engage in psychedelics therapeutically or otherwise, the medicine's going to show you what it wants to show you, regardless of whatever you say. But it's nice to put something out there. And anyway, can I get an amen? Anybody relate to that? Yeah. I'll get to my what I thought I was going to get and what I got in one instance in a minute. But that's the reality. And once I heard that, I was like, wait a minute. I want to watch the show. If this is real, I want to see what I'm looking at. Because when the pineal gland opens, when my pineal gland opens up, my third eye, right? The Egyptians called it the eye of Horus. I got a couple slides on it in a minute. But when that opens up, I can see another percentage of the light spectrum all around us. And so it's not the picture. Like if I was on psychedelics now and I looked at this picture, the queen might the face would move probably a little bit. There'd be, some things going on, some movement. That's different because the stimulus that's here, right? That what I'm taking in, it moves and it adjusts, but what's here is here. What I'm talking about is the stuff between me and the wall, the stuff between me and the ceiling. That is the stuff that's out there, that's in the other elements of the light spectrum, that's legit. And so I leaned into that and had some very interesting experiences. And I will tell you, spoiler alert, some of the most powerful altered state experiences I've had since this journey, now that my third eye's open, have been completely stone cold sober of stuff that's just incredible. And that's, I know I'm not crazy, which is nice. And one person said, when you think you're crazy, you're going through this process, did you know that crazy people usually don't think they're crazy? So the fact you're questioning it means you have a rational mind. I said, I'll take it. Facts, because again, I lean into facts. You can always argue with my opinion, but you can't argue with two things: my experience or the facts. Now, Adam would say, yeah, but I can argue with your interpretation of your experience. I'm like, yeah, but sit down. I'm not talking right now. But, so, okay, there we go. All right. So therapeutic psychedelic use can cause, and I'm curious here, you guys know what a thermometer is, correct? Just say yes, this goes faster.
Yes.
Okay, because I knew you did. I don't want you to fake it. But so I'm going to do thermometer. This is thermometer. Okay? So I want everybody to do thermometer. Okay, ready? So I'm going to ask you a question, and then this means no, this means kind of, and this means amen, brother, I hear you. Okay? Ready? So facts. Therapeutic psychedelic use can cause a sense of unity and oneness with the universe. Anybody? Okay? All right, cool. Increased empathy. Anybody? Okay. Improved mental clarity. Feeling more centered in general. Okay, good. All right. Somebody was like, fair enough, fair enough. We'll get into how you're picking up things from other people. Don't realize it later. There's so much to unpack here, and so I did the best I could to refresh you. But the reality is, that's what happened, and my slide updated, and it didn't update all the way, so I'm going to pretend it did. So microdosing psilocybin is where I started. And the way that I did it was bought some pills on an online marketplace where people buy knitted sweaters usually, so I thought that was kind of funny. Some of you know what I'm talking about. And so, but I tried it, and so it was funny because I was learning that I was on medications, and you have to be really careful. Some of you know this stuff, but psilocybin and a lot of psychedelics hit the 5-HTP receptor, serotonin receptor in the brain. So if you're taking medicines that hit that receptor for those things, and you take the psilocybin, you have to be really careful because it can be dangerous because you've got competing things trying to dump, and you can get an excess of serotonin. You can get, and it's like the worst of both worlds because it's like too much serotonin where it's dangerous, but you don't even get any effect from it as far as the feeling. But what was impactful to me, before I could feel anything, I had to get off of medicines, and I learned there was a difference between a half-life of a medication and a washout period for medication. A half-life is how long it's active in your system. Washout is how long until all of the residual of that given medicine leaves your body. And so it's important to research that if you're kind of like, experimenting with this, looking at this, to make sure that you're doing the right thing for you. But I will say, even before I felt anything, while I was washing out, because I was like, I'm wasting these pills. But you know what? The second day I took a pill, I was like, I think I want to meditate. I don't work like that. You know what I mean? For years I've tried to meditate, and I'm like, but it's just so boring, Adam. It's just, I'm sitting there listening to music, and yes, it's nice, it's kind of chill, like kind of whatever, but it's kind of boring. And I'm like, I don't know, like, I just can't get into it. But I was like, I'm gonna meditate. And I would lay down and I just put on music. I didn't need a guided meditation or anything. I would just listen to like certain meditative beats or binaural beats and stuff. And I would just close my eyes. I would sit there for an hour and just reflecting on, and not be bored, and be really, start to really connect. And I was like, this is kind of cool. Fits and spurts. And so I was doing more microdosing, and I taught people talking about macrodosing mushrooms. Now, I'd done mushrooms twice recreationally. And I remembered that feeling of oneness and that feeling of connectedness and that beautiful experience. And even before I knew all of this, I still counted that, even out of how my life got really crazy when I was doing all sorts of things that created enough reasons for me to get sober. Let's leave it at that. But even then, I recounted my experience of mushrooms as something that was beautiful, you know. And but I was really concerned about my recovery, so I wanted to make sure I did this correctly. So March 6th, 2022 was my birthday, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it. And I did. And I expected this beautiful oneness with the universe kind of stuff, and really being reconnected and whatever. And it was a big deal, because I was like, I'm gonna do it, and then later on someone's gonna say you relapsed, and I'm gonna have to start over, and I'm gonna lose 25 years of sobriety. And so, but I did it, and you know what I got when I was done? I was so sad. I was so sad. I was taken back to my childhood, and nothing like, you know, people process trauma through psychedelics. I recommend it as such. But that's not what it was for me. It was just, it wasn't like an instance or anything. It was amazingly banal. And what I mean by that is it was just me being a kid at my house. And my dad coming in from work, and us sitting down for dinner, and me interacting with my siblings. And coming from a mindset of, that's how life is. And when you're a kid, you think things are always gonna be that way or feel like it. And I was able to reconnect with that feeling. And by reconnecting with that feeling, it was such a stark contrast to what I know is reality that it made me deeply sad. Because I thought, where did all that time go? My dad had died about a year before, and I was reflecting on that and thinking about the temperance of life, the transience of our lives here, and I thought about my mother and some different things. But when I got done, I really was just feeling very somber. I was feeling very quiet. I was feeling a bit uncomfortable, and I didn't know what to do with this. So I worked with my psychedelic integration therapist. I talked to a sponsor. I got involved in Psychedelics in Recovery, which is a 12-step program for people that are in recovery but are open to use of psychedelics in a therapeutic fashion for things. And I just said, I don't know what to do with this, and I don't like it. This sucks. This isn't what I signed up for. Like, I thought I was doing it the right way. Well, I was. I just didn't like my experience. But you know what it did for me? I started becoming a presence in the lives of my children and of my wife. I started calling my mother more regularly just to talk to her. I started not just noticing when I was in a conversation, but not being so caught up on my phone when I was talking to somebody. I started noticing just even the curl of my daughter's hair as it came down the side of her face as she would talk to me. And the way her mouth would form words even. I don't know how to explain it, but I became more present in a way that I never had been. And it was enriching, and they noticed it. You ever seen the movie Adam Sandler, Click? If you haven't, he's got this magic remote where you can fast forward through things in life that are boring or that suck or that he didn't want to do, and can pause things, and he ends up like jumping ahead in life and missing all this time with the people that he loves. I mean, it's like an Adam Sandler goofy movie, so it starts out funny. By the end, you just want to cry. At least I did. And part of it was because it resonated so closely for me. And so that was what that did for me. And so I started doing macro journeys. I started doing some DMT and meditating with that. That was a little different too, because with DMT, you're able to, what I call, see through the veil a bit as you understand the facts that we covered earlier. And you see things later and you're like, okay, this is interesting. But just starting to really feel a sense of connectivity. Now, it's one thing to say we're all connected. Some of you, and I don't say this condescendingly at all, because I know that's what it would be for me, is to say, it's one thing to say we're all connected. Raise your hand if you believe that. And it's okay, it's real okay if you don't. I've gotten to a place in this process of we're all one. That's different, that's bigger, that's more. Raise your hand if you feel like you kind of discern the difference between those two. Because candidly, I'm gonna contradict myself and say they kind of sound like the same thing, but they're absolutely not. And when you can internalize at a DNA level the latter, it changes your whole world. Because it's not I'm connected to you, it's I'm you, and you're me, and I'm you, and I'm you, and I'm you, and we are all the same. I saw a meme that had a picture of the earth, and inside was a giant being that said the universe on it, and there were fingers poking up through the surface of the earth, and it said people for each one of the fingers, but of course they were all connected to the same hand. That's as close as I can get to simply explaining it. But see, it's like if I see 5 different buckets, colored buckets with water in them, I say, the water looks like the color of the bucket. So I see yellow, red, blue, green, but it's all the same. So by the same token, we all look different and have different backgrounds and all these things. We're all one. We all have a level of connectedness overall that it's just a different sense. The same way that you think of the way you care for your family or people that you're connected with, to feel like that, not even just about people. And I'm like the last PETA guy. I love good steak and burger. But it's just getting to a place of really feeling like that with all living things. And I don't say that to sound sappy. You know, I joke with my friends. I say I'm the perfect spokesman to get this out to the masses because I'm a conservative. I'm Republican. I mean, look at my hair. And I'm not. I don't want to get into all this stuff with you know who. But because it's not even about that. My point is fiscal conservative social liberal. Don't take all my money for taxes, and you can marry who you want and do whatever you want in your personal love life. Fair enough? Hey, can I get an amen? Anybody else? Any Bueller? Okay, that's all I'm talking about. But my point is I have a military background. I'm from the South, for God's sakes. I'm not the person that ascribes to this stuff. And I'm here to tell you it's absolutely real and true, and it's changed my life in a way that literally is supernatural, and I can prove it. Facts. Everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. It can be no other way. This is not philosophy, this is physics. Bam, drop the mic. Nikola Tesla, one of his quotes says, you know, the point in time when we start studying the non-physical reality around us instead of the physical reality around us, we will eclipse the scientific breakthroughs of the last 100 years in 12 months. He also said if you want to understand the universe, you need to know 3 things: energy, frequency, and vibration. Facts. Do you remember learning about atoms in school? Anybody? Just say yes, this goes faster.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember that you went to school? Okay, cool. So that's a picture of what an atom might look like in a school book, a textbook or something, right? I always picture something the size of a ping pong ball or so, and there's a big dot in the middle, and they say, this is the nucleus, and outside there's a shell, and there's little electrons pinging around inside, and these make up everything from the microphone stand to your body, to the desk, to the book. Any questions, kids? Great, let's go into the next thing. But they never get into the scale of an atom. When you say, I don't know about this energy stuff, like, I'm like, what do you mean? This is solid, like I can, like, what do you mean? It's all matter, it's all hard. Okay, hang on, hold on, Tiger. That's an atom. Let's talk about the scale of an atom. If an atom's nucleus was blown up to be the size of a single blueberry, the entire outside of the atom would eclipse Diamondback Stadium, would eclipse an entire NFL football arena. That's how much empty space there is inside of you, because the nucleus and the shell of the atom, and technically the shell's just a force field really, but let's pretend that's the only part that's real matter. So if you say, what do you mean I'm hard matter? Like, look, I can touch, I can tap myself. Based on this, again, facts, not opinions, not metaphysical weirdo stuff. The total amount of matter in each human body is smaller than the size of a single speck of dust. Because it's just the nucleus and the outside shell. If we were to take the shell and push it around the blueberry, and do that for every atom in your body, the entirety of you physically would be smaller than a single speck of dust. That's why this stuff matters. That's why quantum science has proven that all of this energy within us, just the same way if I hit a tuning fork around a glass of water and it reverberates, the same thing happens with our body, with our energy, with everything that we have. You know, there's a school of thought that our minds don't live in our brains. Anybody heard of universal consciousness? Watch the CE5 documentary, fascinating stuff. But what they talk about, the same way, that would be like saying that your phone, if you're looking at your phone, that Facebook lives in your phone. Well, no, your phone's a portal to it. The TV, right? The movie doesn't live in the TV. The TV channels it in. They're saying the same thing for your brain. And that's why they call it universal consciousness. Your brain is the antenna that brings in your mind. Pretty powerful, pretty wild stuff, right? Here's another one. Fact. Not opinion. Fact. The human eye can only see between 430 and 770 THz. Our ears can only detect sound between 20 hertz and 20 kilohertz, which I'll just share with you. That means we can see 0.33% of the light spectrum. We can't even see 1/2 of the total light spectrum around us. If we could, it'd be almost double, at 0.5%. And similar with sound. And so that means that there's a lot going on around us that we cannot see or hear. This is not opinion, this is not metaphysical, this is fact. That's why when you open your pineal gland through psychedelic experiences in altered states, you can start to see some of these other things. Fact. Scientists discovered that our brains can process the world in 11 dimensions. The Swiss team, and there's a bunch of groups now, this is maybe the first one. Researchers from the Blue Brain Project discovered that the brain is full of multidimensional geometrical structures operating as many as 11 dimensions. And I don't have time to go into all this. And candidly, one of the challenges of quantum stuff, because it does prove it, but it's really complicated. Like there's a quote from a guy, one of the people that's an expert in quantum science, that says, anybody that thinks they understand quantum science and is not completely blown away doesn't get it at all. Because it's countered everything that we are told. And so quantum entanglement, just to give you a quick example, is that all atoms in our universe came from the Big Bang. So there's an energetic connection between every atom in the universe. So they've done studies like at the HeartMath Institute where they took a bunch of PTSD veterans and they took blood samples from them and they sent them halfway around the world and they had a microscope watching the blood samples. Meanwhile, with the veterans, they started doing PTSD work and getting them all worked up and their emotions all worked up. And guess what? The blood samples thousands of miles away started moving and vibrating in time with the work that was being done because there's a connection. They've shot things out into space into like Alpha Centauri, which is way beyond even like Pluto. This is like way, way, way out. And where they can test stimulus response, and they've done action on something here on the ground with us. And they found not only did it react way out there, but it almost reacted, they said, almost a millisecond even before the initial. How's that possible? But anyway, there's a bunch of stuff out there that supports this stuff. But there's nothing like your own experience, and I'll get into that too. Facts. Epigenetics. Anybody ever heard of epigenetics? You can change your DNA. What? You can change the way your DNA represents in your body and your mind. People can cure themselves of disease with the way they think. That's awesome. And here's the funny part, where when people, again, start to go, I don't know about all this, like this sounds kind of, we all know the placebo effect, we don't question that. That proves it. The fact that that's a thing at all proves it. But there's also something called the nocebo effect. Anybody familiar with the nocebo effect? It's the opposite. It's the other side of that coin. The nocebo effect says, if my mind thinks something bad's gonna happen, I make it happen. Oh, you mean you predicted it? That is a thing, but that's not what I'm talking about. No, you made it happen. Wait, what? Do the research. Again, there's some great people out there. Dr. Joe Dispenza is somebody, just go to the guy I know, Bruce Lipton. And what's great about those two guys, there's a bunch of great people out there, Abraham Hicks, but they bring up the science quickly to explain it. They've got some really nice graphics and visuals and studies they reference, because remember, the limbic brain wants to go, I'm uncomfortable, I need to be comfortable again, so I have to pretend this isn't real because this shouldn't be real anyway. But if you can open yourself up to it, it can be life-altering. But here's the catch. You gotta be all in. You can't go, all right, well, I heard this guy, and I read some articles, and I watched a couple YouTube videos, so okay, I'll buy it. I don't think it's gonna, but maybe well, don't waste your time. If you don't believe all in the same way I believe I'm standing on this stage, that it's gonna work before you do it, it's not gonna work. And that can be hard. It's not easy, but it is simple. But the pineal gland in your brain, it's right behind the right eye. Again, the Egyptians called it the third eye. It's responsible for your sense of intuition. One thing I thought was funny, we talked about gender roles and all this kind of stuff. And whatever, but I saw this thing that said that it's interesting. They said in the ancient cultures where they understood this, that there are a lot of statues of the woman holding her hand around the man. And it was saying that the woman was protecting the man with her intuition. We talk about women's intuition because the top 3 chakras are more your feminine energies. I don't want to get into all that, but anyway, that's where that comes from. But I thought that was kind of cool. So your pineal gland, it's the brain's antenna. Remember I talked about that, there between your mind and your brain? To bring in things so that you can receive information, you can perceive things you cannot otherwise. That's why they can do studies with people, and they're all seeing some of the same things. How is that possible if it was all just made up? They've done a study with DMT, I think, with over 10,000 people on Reddit. There was a group, an academic group that did it, and they found that all over the world, people were having experiences and seeing some of the exact same things. Pretty fascinating stuff. But it's tied to this. So, if you Google spiritual awakening, there's a lot of, some models say there's 5 steps, some say there's 12 steps. I saw one I think I linked to in my bio that was 23. There's just a lot of stuff out there, and they're not all going to be always linear for everybody. So I felt like I wanted to do justice to the theme of the talk, to talk through what those stages would look like, and I'll share with you a little bit about what my experience was with some of those stages. So, waking up to the void, that's when you just don't feel like, you just feel like something's missing. You just like, I don't know, it's just not as satisfied and fulfilling the things that used to be like good enough, things you spent your time with, or maybe connections with people, or whatever. It's like, and it's just not enough anymore to just work and vacation a couple weeks a year, watch TV at night, and take care of the kids. It just doesn't do it for you anymore. Going out on date night on Friday night, it just isn't enough anymore. Something like that. Dark night of the soul, that's a tough one. That's really hard. And where people talk about ego death in a plant medicine sense, but it's more overarching. It's more existential, if that's the right word, but I'll get more into that. But that's a really hard part, because you start realizing everything you've put all this stock in your whole life is basically a lie, and going, okay, everything that I'm learning, not is just different, but it's counter to everything else that I thought I knew and ascribed to that hasn't served me. And now I'm learning these things. And it's heavy stuff. It's a mourning, there's a grieving process there. And then the sponge phase, where you just start going nuts with, I just want to learn everything. Holy cow, if this is really real then, what else is out there? You start going down all rabbit holes and learning things and trying new hobbies, and getting around new people, and just kind of like trying things out. And then the soul sessions is where you're hooked up and you're working with a mentor or a coach, or healers, or just people, spiritual guides, just different things that I find the universe will just put people in front of you when you're ready to benefit from. And then surrender and allow. I was thinking something the other day that said there's a big difference between giving up and knowing when to surrender to the process. Because by the time you get there, you've done a lot of hard work. And then you get to just kind of chill and relax, because now you feel safe, and you feel secure, and you feel powerful, and you feel like everything's okay. And so it's a downshift, so to speak, in activity. And then awareness and service, where you're just on a mission to just help other people. So waking up to the void, questioning everything, maybe not just not feeling fulfilled by the things that used to, maybe reality TV doesn't do it for you anymore. If it never did, good for you. I had a period of time that I used to like it. Feeling kind of stagnant in your life. You just feel like something's missing. You don't know what it is, but you're just not where you want to be. Some things just don't bring you the same pleasure anymore. And then dark night of the soul.
Sorry, I'm on the phone.
Okay. And so that was really hard for me. And I'll tell you, my dark night of the soul was really tough. It didn't start, my spiritual awakening, if I look at it, started a few years before plant medicine, but I didn't know I was going through it. And so by the time I caught up to it with plant medicine, I was able to really speed through some of the different phases that we talk about here. But again, may feel despair, knowing something has to change. I can't keep going like this. I've got to do something differently. And I'll tell you, for me, this was really tough. I was married for 12 years, and I got divorced in 2016, and it all but destroyed me. the guilt over it, the sense of shame, the sense of failing as a man and as a husband and a father, feeling like what that broken home might affect on my children. And I can tell you, it was quite the dichotomy, because I was traveling all over the world, scuba diving in Phuket and booking African safaris and staying in the presidential suite in Dubai by the Burj Khalifa. And hold on a second.
Can I speak with the supervisor? Because this is a little bit too much. Yeah, so please, send me to the supervisor.
I'm sorry, my ADHD is long ass. See, that was a test. It actually was. I'll get to it later. So, back up. So like I said, I was divorced, I was traveling around the world, I was doing all these really cool things, but there were days that I just wanted to kill myself. The regret from my divorce was drowning me. I felt like I had sandpaper in my lungs, and there were times I could barely breathe. And I remember reading something that said that children of parents who've committed suicide are 50% more likely to commit suicide themselves. And I said, I can't do that to them. But I was like, this doesn't make sense. It's not supposed to be like this. My life overall is good. Like, everybody has bumps and gets through things. This is not normal. Something needs to change. So if I'm really honest, as I reflect back on my experiences with all this, it really started long before, because I started doing other things before I got to plant medicine, in learning and doing and changing things through a journey. And I'll get more to that when I get there. But basically, I'm curious, has anybody been through Dark Night of the Soul? Is anybody maybe going through it now? Okay. Yeah, it can be jarring. It really can. And so, then you go through the sponge phase. I've seen some call it the hermit phase, where you squirrel away and you just want to learn about everything. And you go down a bunch of rabbit holes, and you're trying new things, you're talking to new people, and you're becoming invigorated by some different energies. And I got on, and I've read so many things and seen so many videos about things, and I'm in so many different communities online, and it was just really powerful. And talk about searching, sometimes new teachers will show up. And I had somebody show up for me that I'll get to, where I started doing energy work with somebody, and it was completely transformational in what we did. And I guess I can share now. But it was, so here's the thing. Like I told you, I was kind of skeptical coming into this, right? So this guy's telling me all this stuff about energy, and I said, okay, well, how's that work? And he's telling me about we have negative energy that drains our chakras, and that's why we don't. That's why we get negative emotions of like fear and anger, especially if it's stuff that's not yours, meaning, am I angry, but I don't know why? Like, there's no reason to be angry. Certainly, if I'm angry and somebody's done something and I need to process it and handle the situation, well, why golly do it? But if it doesn't really make sense, there's not anything in my environment or my recent experience that speaks to that. It's something that's not your own. It's something that's being pushed. You could be picking it up from other people. That's another thing. When people are in your energetic vibe, you can be working on yourself and doing all this stuff, but if your partner's completely toxic and unwilling to change, you may have to look at changing that relationship. There's a lot to this stuff. But anyway. And so I said, all right, well, if this is real, then he's like, yeah, I can remote view. That's how this works with energy work. Anybody knows about distance work with energy? And I said, really? I said, okay. So he worked with me a little bit, and I'll be honest, I really didn't feel very much. And I said, aha, let me show you a picture of my wife. And I did, and he said, whoa. And I said, exactly. And he said, and I say that jokingly to a degree, but we've spent thousands of dollars on you can argue tens of thousands of dollars on things from physical and mental health interventions, up to and including major surgeries that haven't worked for things in some degrees. And he said, yeah, she's got a lot of stuff going on. It seems like she's had a lot of things for a long time. I said, she's been through a lot of trauma in her life. And he said, all right, well, let me try to do something. And now she has no idea this is happening. This is very important. So you go, oh, it's because she knew. No, she knew nothing of this. And he's like, well, let me go ahead and remove some of the negative energy that she has. And she was home, and she texted me, and she goes, I just got a splitting headache. I'm gonna go lay down. And I messed with him, and I said, oh, it seems like whatever you did went in reverse, because she just got a headache. And I don't get headaches as a rule. So I think a headache's just a headache. But he said, ask her where her head hurts. He said, sometimes think of it like barometric pressure. When something changes and shifts, that can create something jarring with your energy, and that can create that pain. And I was like, okay, I can bite on that. And I said, where does your head hurt? She said, right behind my right eye. She didn't know about all this stuff. He goes, oh, that's your brow chakra, your pituitary gland. He said, that's where energy drains happen. They attach to your chakras. Okay, now that I know that, let me go in and work on that. So again, I'm like, I got nothing to lose. I'm like, okay. And by the way, the whole time I'm like, this guy's gonna ask me for money. Never asked me for a dime. If anything, at the end, I'm like, you need to let me pay you for this. But that's a different thing. And so he did it. And as soon as he did something to her again, she texted me, goes, my headache just went away. I said, you need to come into my office. And I need to tell you what's going on. And I did. And I tested him again. You know, my youngest daughter, she's 12. Bless her heart. I love her to death. We have a very special connection. It's kind of nice. But she struggles with emotional regulation and feeling extremely defensive when being told or asked to behave differently, or maybe there's something she could have done different in a situation of conflict. And, you know, and so, you know, she's had her struggles, and he looked at her and he's like, yeah, and he shared some specifics with me that I was like, it's interesting that you know that. I said, all right, so I'm in Phoenix. He's in Omaha, Nebraska. I call her in Denver, and I'm talking to her. Hey, honey, how are you? Oh, I'm good. We're talking. So I hit him on Messenger. I said, okay, do it. And so he removed some things on her, and she stopped mid-sentence. I didn't tell her what was going on. I said, honey, you still there? She said, yeah, I'm here. I said, you okay? She said, yeah. I said, did something just happen? She said, it did. I said, what? She goes, I have no idea. I said, how do you feel? She goes, no, I don't know. I don't say it. She goes, it sounds weird. I said, just say it. She goes, I feel happier. Fuck, I'll take it. And I started talking to her about some of the challenges and issues that she has. She's so defensive, you can't even get the sentence out to be able to engage in a meaningful conversation about trying to show her to behave differently or do things differently, have different outcomes in conflict. And she was listening and she was talking and she was like, and I'm going, this is crazy. Another test, I sent him a picture of my mom and dad. I said, this is my mom and dad. What do you see? So he said some things about my mom that I said, okay, interesting, I can pick up on that, okay, I get it. He goes, but it's weird with your father. He goes, it's like he's not even in the picture. I said, what do you mean? He said, I know it sounds weird. It's almost like he's not even in the photograph. And that's all. I never seen. I don't know how else to interpret that. And I said, well, my dad died about 1.5 years ago. He said, oh, nobody's ever shown me. Okay, well that must be it. And I was like, man, this is wild. And you know, I got on and I said, I want to fly you out. I said, I want you to do more work on my wife. So we can do two things. I can fly to Omaha, Nebraska. I can get 2 plane tickets, a hotel room, ground transportation, food, right fly you to Phoenix, and you can stay with me. Now, by this time, we had talked for like 4+ hours the next day. I did a FaceTime with he and my wife, getting kind of comfortable. I was like, I'm comfortable if you are. Do you want to try this? Like, I really want to benefit from what you can do. And he came to our house, and he, with things that we spent tons of time and money and doctors saying, try this, try that, for things for my wife for years, and 2 sessions, and stuff was just gone. I'll give you an example. Like, she gets cortisone shots in her knees because of bad knees, probably more than you're supposed to. There's a certain point where there's a point of diminishing returns if you keep doing that stuff. And I got her these like knee braces for Christmas. This is January. And they were like pink and black to wear to the gym, and they were in our pile of Amazon returns. My little heart was a bit hurt. I said, oh, you don't like them? She said, well, I don't need them anymore. How's it possible? So it's just crazy. So I just started doing all these things, and I remember the next day after he worked on me, he went home, and I'm sitting there watching couch on the couch on Sunday morning, and I was overcome. And again, I'm in sobriety. I've done a lot of crazy things, putting substances in my body for experiences, and I had the best high ever for like 2 seconds. I felt giddy. I was overwhelmed with joy, and I laughed. I felt mildly drunk, and I thought, this is weird. And I messaged him. I said, are you working on me right now? Because he said when you have an energetic connection, sometimes there'll be things that'll, you'll laugh. He said, no, I'm not even thinking about you. Why? And I told him. And he goes, no, I'm not even considering you. No, because I'm working on my 5-month-old nephew. And it was so cool. He goes, I sent him some energy, and he just lit up with joy. It was beautiful. You should have seen it. And I'm like, is that what I just felt? He's like, what did you feel? And I told him. He's like, he wasn't even surprised. He's like, yeah, that's normal, because I worked with you guys face to face for a few days, rippled back to that, and like, yeah, that happens sometimes. And I'm like, this is crazy. I can be on a business trip, and I can send energy to my wife, and she'll text me and go, what did you just do? This is no BS. This is very real. And so it's been really powerful utilizing this stuff. But that's been some of my experience with this. And I've referred this guy to probably 24 people, and or more at this point. And yeah, every one of them has been fortunate and been grateful. I just hired a woman who he started working with. He's like, do you have pain in your left hip? She's like, how do you know that? Kind of cool. All right, stage 4, the soul sessions, the heavy lifting. Now, sometimes this can take years, sometimes even decades. You're raising your overall sense of energy. You're developing. It's like weightlifting for spirituality. You know, some people come in buffer than others, and it just takes time. It also depends on how much baggage you gotta process, how much trauma you've experienced in your life, how much effed up stuff's happened to you, and what have you done or not done with it. It takes time for all those things. All of that impacts you. But that's where you're really becoming the true you and kind of shedding the things that, you know, I don't know about you guys, but you know, a lot of people can relate to, well, I say I like these things because that's my parents expect. Or I did this because that's what society really kind of has guided me to. Or, you know, and you start to kind of really become your own, and you come into your own and start to kind of grow. And a lot of times when people do talk about energy centers and meditating and whatever, it's raising your overall energy and kind of, again, becoming buff spiritually, so to speak. But it can take a long time depending on what, if anything, have you done up to this point to work on yourself, and how much do you need to kind of work through. Then surrender and allow, and that's the part where you've done a lot of heavy lifting. By the time you get to this point, it's a different shift because you've done a ton of work, you're researching things, you're trying things, you're experiencing things, because you get a sense of purpose again. God, that alone is just so refreshing. So it fuels you. You don't have to like push yourself to do this stuff. You can't wait to do it. It's a wonderful way to be. But you know, it can be tiring a bit. So when you get to this phase, you're kind of settled into a place of just kind of chill. Like I'm surrendering and I'm trusting the process. I'm trusting my life. I feel safe and I feel strong. And I'm bold and I'm centered and I have gravitas. And I have conviction, and I have purpose, and nothing can shake that, and I don't care what people think about me anymore. And all I want to do is be of service. It's a different way to be in the world. And it's such a contrast between being like confident and bold. Whenever I was saying bold, like maybe it's being because I'm American, but you know, like being like very assertive and very like, but it's not that at all. It's so, there's a quietness, a stillness, a sense of peace and centeredness mixed with feeling strong and bold, and having conviction, and knowing who you are and what you want, and not being completely unapologetic about it. And then awareness and service. You become aware of your divinity, to your connection to whatever, if any. But I would say once you get to this point, you got something. Whatever connection is to something bigger than you, and we can leave it at that for the purpose of this talk. And just spreading your light and what your mission is. And you have a sense of purpose for the world and what you want to do. And it's usually centered around making a difference for other people. And honor your joy, live your passion. Uplifting others becomes a default. And I will tell you, this part was interesting. So the last stage, I guess it's stage 4, where it talks about that can take years in some cases, or even decades, processing and raising your overall energy and coming into your own consciousness and whatever. And I had a really powerful experience where I was working with my energy coach, and I guess we've been working together for a couple months or so, and I said, wow, I'm really excited to see what's next, because I have no frame of reference at this point other than my own experience, okay? And he said, well, slow down, you're already going really fast. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, I just to share with you, he said, you're a really unique situation. I said, how so? And he said, I've worked with thousands of people over the years, and I've never seen anything like what you are doing, what your experience is with this. Like, what do you mean? He said, well, usually when people learn these truths, they then start to unpack their trauma and their past and their stuff and do all the work and do whatever. He goes, you know, when you're at this part, you're supposed to open your energy centers through meditation to kind of raise your overall energetic vibration, and to be able to have a stronger sense of physical and mental attributes and whatever. And he said, I might work with someone for 6 months on their first chakra, and I check on it once a week as I work with them and see where it's at, and they may go 6 months before it starts to open up. I said, okay. He said, you're popping up in chakras every 10 days, 2 weeks. It's unheard of. I've researched it. It's undocumented. I've never seen anything like it before. I said, really? This might be boastful. I don't know. I didn't know that was street cred. I had no idea. Like, this is all new to me. All I know is what these guys tell me, right? And I said, why is that? He goes, well, I shared a couple things. But one thing, that I wanted to make sure I shared was, he said, well, you told me when you got to me, he said, you worked on yourself in AA for 25 years. You've done all this stuff to try with your ADHD. Most people just go to therapy when they're in crisis mode and try to save a relationship or something. You've spent a lot of time and money and effort and resources trying to just better yourself for years and years and years. Most people don't do that. So by the time you got to me, it's like you were clear, so this could work for you. And I almost cried, because I felt so daunted as a part of my life going, God, I teach this stuff, I know I'm an expert at these things, and why am I so daunted by some of these executive dysfunction things that I experience in my brain, and some of the mistakes that I've made, and so it was so enriching to go, wow, everything I'd done my whole life was to get me ready for this phase, to get me ready for this process, and it's just been so powerful, and so it was really significant when he shared that with me. So that was that was a big deal. And then some miscellaneous points. You might chuckle at this one. So seriously, I'm working with, and this gets to the point about when Austin actually came and stayed with us, my energy guy, who's now a dear friend. We're actually launching some programs together to help people with pretty cool stuff. But it was funny. He said to me, because he hadn't known me that long yet, but he's like, your hair looks darker. And I said, no, it doesn't. And my wife goes, no, it really does. I said, no way, really? And then my boss, like a week later, goes, this is gonna sound weird because I'm a dude, and he's my friend, he was like my friend too, he goes, you kind of just get glow about your skin, like you look younger. Are you doing anything for that? Is that the Zoom filter? And I said, yes to the first, no to the second. And I shared a little bit with him, but I thought, holy cow, and sure enough, I was talking to somebody, because I didn't know what this was called, I didn't know this was a thing, I just knew I was having different experiences. And somebody said, you're going through a spiritual awakening. And I heard the term before, and they go, no, Google it, it's a thing. Google New Age Spiritual Awakening, and damn sure enough, one of the things says, you may start to look younger. And I thought, hell, I'll take it. And my ex-wife's like, there's no way, you must be dyeing your hair. I'm like, I'm not. May lose weight. Again, I lost 25 pounds without working out or limiting my diet. But I will say that what I'm choosing to eat is different, but not because I'm being forced to, or I'm saying, well, I should be good. Just, I find that I naturally have a taste for different foods, and also when you manage your energy better, and you don't have energy drains, why do we eat food? Because we need fuel for energy for our body. That's right, good job. So, see, I just channeled a fourth grader. So, that's right. So when your energy is dropped, you need less food because you need less fuel. Does that make sense? I turn into a hybrid electric instead of a Humvee. So I just need less food. Also, so if I'm eating less food because I need less, because I already have more energy, then I'm taking in less of the stuff in food that puts on excess weight. Does that make sense? I've also found, and again, I told you, like, I'm from the South. I used to joke when people would say, yeah, if you're a vegan, you live for 10 years longer. I'm like, yeah, but what's the point? The food sucks. Like, it's a trade-off. I just eat die sooner and have better food. And I say that very flippantly, and I don't say that to be me, but I've got to the point now where I don't have a taste for red meat. I don't like it. I can't eat it. Like, it's kind of gross for me now. Not because of anything around, an ethical breach or any of this kind of stuff. No judgment of anything. Like, we still need to have it at my house. I'm like, I can't do it. And chicken, I can't do most of the time. I'm like, please don't take fish from me. I love sushi, but there are times with fish. I'm like, seriously? Here's the funny part. I don't eat vegetables. I hate them. I haven't eaten vegetables. When I was a kid, and your parents make you eat vegetables, I always said I was such a good salesman. I got my parents to not make me eat vegetables. I haven't eaten them since. So if they take meat from me, and I don't eat any vegetables, I guess I'm going to be taking on a beans and pasta or something. But I eat a lot of nuts. But yeah, it's just a different way, but I find I don't need a lot of the same things, and I just don't have to worry about my weight. And I had a point where I would just go, I had a personal trainer at the time before I started doing plant medicine and some of these things, to where I was even seeing a trainer and I was putting on weight. And I was like, what is going on with me? Well, you're getting older, your metabolism's slowing down. BS. This stuff's real, and it works. What else? You don't get sick as often. That's one thing. When you vibrate higher, like things like bacteria, viruses, things like that can't live in your body. You also get, if you do get sick, you get well faster. It's funny, my energy guys sometimes be like, yeah, I was around somebody with a cold, or I'm starting to get a cold, so let me do this, and then it goes away. I'm like, you can do that? And then manifesting. What's the point of all of it if you're not living all of this stuff? Everything I talked about for the last time, I don't want to get up here. Doesn't matter if you're not living the life that you want out of it. And I'll tell you, it can be sensitive, because I've talked to people that have been in this stuff way longer than I have. And they're like, yeah, I know about energy, I know about manifesting and all this stuff, and they don't have anything in their life, and they're broke, and they have all these problems and stuff. And it's not a judgment, but it's like, if anything, my heart leaves, it goes out and goes, oh, let me help. Like, but is the ego to where they can be open to learning to do it differently to have a better outcome? And that's not my journey, that's their journey. But it's a point to be taken. And so what does that even mean? Well, when you manifest things, anybody ever heard of that law of attraction and The Secret and power positive thinking? Say yes, this goes faster.
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. But what happens if you Google manifestation or you go to YouTube? What do they jump to? To manifest, you need to do what? Anybody that's looked it up?
Think about what you want.
Okay.
And visualize it.
Think about what you want, visualize it. Yes, those are some things for it, for sure.
Imagine yourself already having it.
Yes, imagine already having it, imagine receiving it. Yeah, so all of those things are tied to a big A called affirmations. Affirmations are important for manifesting, but guess what? If I start with affirmations and I don't do the heavy lifting of feel so I can heal, it's not going to work. And you know what I'll say? Manifesting doesn't work. I tried, got a whole journal and everything. And I wrote all this, the manifestation journal, and I did the 369, I did all this stuff. It didn't work. But that's like as if I was trying to teach you how to fire a gun. And I was like, okay, here's how to hold it, and here's how to aim, and here's how to brace for recoil, and here's how to use the sight, and here's how to, all the stuff. And then I go, and now hit that target, and you pull your gun out, and you try to use the techniques I gave you, but your gun is clogged and jammed, and it's all rusty. And the sight's broken off, and you miss the target, and you blame me because you say, well, your techniques don't work. I tried your techniques, they didn't work. I'm like, well, your gun sucks. If you don't clear the mechanism first and process out your trauma and all your BS from your life, none of that stuff will happen for you. You got to deal with your crap. And I'll tell you, I didn't deal with my crap, and it cost me greatly. I went to, after being suicidal, I went to this place, very powerful place called On-Site, and I remember we were doing, it's talk therapy, it was what they called experiential therapy, big difference, mixed with something called psychodrama. Anybody ever heard of either of those things? Pretty intense. So it's not like, tell me about your mother, it's, okay, which person do you want to play your mother? And what were some of the things she said? And which person do you want to play your father? And they kind of get you back in there where you like have like an experience, it's really like heavy stuff. And so they were doing this activity for inner child work. And they said, you have to pick somebody to play your inner child. And, you know, I watched people go through this. It wasn't my turn yet. I was watching people, and they would come up and say, you know, you didn't know, and you were just a kid, or you shouldn't have been held responsible for that, or you didn't know any better, or that should never happen to you. And, you know, some really healing stuff that was going on, right? I'm sitting there. I'm a pretty open guy. I've done a lot in recovery, sharing things that at one point I said I'd take to my grave. I share on stage in front of hundreds of people because it helps, you know, and my message isn't about me. And I'm sitting there going, I'm not doing this activity because I effing hate my inner child. I loathe my inner child. I'm disgusted with me as a child. I was fat and I was disgusting and I was gross and I got picked on and made fun of and I wet the bed till I was 12 years old. And I've spent a lot of time and years to become a very polished, articulate man. And I am so far from that snot-nosed, disgusting kid, and I hate him, and I don't ever want to look back. Don't make me. I don't want to do it. And the therapist said, well, we'll do it, but you'll just say that to him. And I go, what? No, that sounds cruel. I said, how can you say that? That's cruel. I wouldn't do that. He goes, is that how you feel? It's like, you're paying a lot of money to be here. We're doing this, and that's what you're going to do then. And I felt really self-conscious for a guy. Then I was very bashful. And I got up, and he's like, all right, say it. And I was like, I effing hate you, and you're disgusting, and you're a slob, and you're gross, and you're just such, and I just started saying all these things. I just had so much hatred for me as a small child. And he said, all right, hold on. And I was really going off, and everybody's like, oh God. And he goes, hold on a second. He gave me a Post-it note with a Sharpie marker. And he said, write those things down and slap them on. And I was like, you're disgusting, and you're gross, and I hate you, and you're nasty, and your father hates you, and you're always in trouble, and you won't fucking listen, and God! And I got all that stuff out. He said, all right, now take a step back and look at you as a child. And I took a step back, and I saw all those labels of disgusting, and fat, and gross, and slob, and whatever, and I felt so much sadness for this little kid. And I was like, oh my gosh. He said, I'm here to tell you that voice that you were just using to do that was not your voice. I said, what do you mean? He said, that was something else. I would argue that that was your father's voice. And here's the reality before you go, oh God, your father was terrible. He had good and bad points. But here's the thing, a lot of those things, he never said those things to me outright. But the way that he would look at me and the way that I would interpret and feel about myself created a perfect storm to where that really was where it came from. I hope that makes sense. And he said, so your father didn't have any right to make you feel that way. You put those on him, because F him. Nobody should make a little kid feel like that, talk to a little kid like that. And I said, all right. So the guy playing my dad. And I was like, all right, you're disgusting, and you're an ass, and you're this, and you're that. And I'm slapping these Post-it notes on this guy. And like, F you, how dare you make me feel like that? He said, now back up. What do you see? And when I backed up and I saw those things on my father, all that anger dissipated and my heart broke. And I felt an overwhelming sadness because I said, oh my God, that's how my father saw himself. Because a lot of times our children are reflections of us. We're not even cognizant of it. And I thought, oh my God, those are the tools he had to work with, because that's how he felt. And all of that anger went away. And then when I turned back to my inner child, I was able to feel so much love. Has anybody ever seen Rocket Man, the movie about Elton John? At the end, when the little boy who plays him as a boy goes, when are you going to hug me? Because earlier in the movie he says it to his father. His father goes, don't be soft, and walks away. It's a cruel moment. And at the end of the movie, he says it to himself. The inner child of him says it to himself. And he comes in and hugs him, and I was like, that's what happened to me. And it was freeing. See, I thought I pushed away that sense of self. I thought I pushed away that inner child that I hated and loathed. And I didn't even realize till years later in a lot of therapy that it impacted me every day of my life, because I was always trying to make up for it. And I always still felt like that fat little gross kid inside. Like the Wizard of Oz, when they all go to see the wizard and they get in and they finally are the great and powerful wizard, and the fire, the torches are sparking flames, and they're all in awe. And then the little fat, little old curmudgeon man starts, waddling behind the curtain, and they go, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And it's like, that was me a lot of my life. I was business guy and doing all these different things, traveling around and doing all this stuff, but I still felt like that inside, so it was overcompensating, and it ended up costing me greatly in a lot of different ways that I wasn't even cognizant of. And so all of this stuff is very connected, and that was some of the heavy lifting that I did to get out of where I just wanted to die. And this is some of the work that I did where I didn't have to feel like that anymore. But with, I guess I'll get to the manifesting, but basically, I'll get to this first. So this is kind of my journey in a nutshell of what my experience has been, to kind of sum up the high points. I went into some of the breadth and depth of details, like the detail that I lost my remote. So a moment of silence for the remote. It was a good remote. Dark night of the soul for me was very tough. I was seeing all these things with people talking about love and light, and you open your third eye and you see all this really cool stuff. I was not seeing a lot of really cool stuff. I was seeing a lot of really like dark, heavy kind of stuff, and I'm like, what is happening? Have you ever seen the Saturday Night Live skit with Kate McKinnon where they go to the aliens? If you haven't, where like the three people are talking about their experience with extraterrestrials, and the first two people are like, oh, it's just amazing, and I was floating on a pool of clouds and all this stuff, and she is like, this trailer park woman smoking a cigarette going, yeah, I didn't have any of that. I had them coming up messing with me, and they were like batting at my breasts, and they were, maybe they were doing an anatomical experiment. No, I'm pretty sure this one was off the books. There was a guy at the door who kept peeking, looking as a lookout to see if anybody was coming. It's a pretty funny skit. It was so funny they did 3 renditions of it with 3 different hosts because it was so well received. But that's how I kind of felt like in the spiritual world, because people were talking about all these beautiful things, and I wasn't seeing a lot of beautiful things. And I was like, I'm now going crazy. This is fantastic. Anyway, and so it was interesting though, where I was able to learn some things and go through some things and have some really powerful experiences. Anybody know Tony Piazza? He spoke here on the Changa ceremony. I know you know, but I did a ceremony with him, and that was extremely powerful. And he was talking to me afterwards, if you're curious. Was able to understand some things, and it was very, very powerful how that went. Inner child work, plant medicine, energy work I already talked about. I'm doing that every day. I do deep meditation where I'm able to kind of connect inside myself, and I kind of picture it like scuba diving. I'm a scuba diver, and it's not boring listening to music. I didn't get it. Now I get it. The way that you connect is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Like when you tap into your mind and you're just, it's wild. It's like, now I get it. I used to think it was so boring. I think of it as Tibetan monks, and they're like, they meditated every day for 20 years. I'm like, oh my God, my eyes roll out of my head out of boredom. Are you kidding me? Now I'm like, oh man, those guys must be so dialed in. I've got the most fascinating experiences. Now that I get it, because I've had my own, I'm like, I can't even touch something like that. And, yeah, doing things every day. And the manifestation stuff has been fantastic. I'll tell you, anybody ever been laid off from a company? Standard, at least in the corporate world, if you get laid off, they usually give you 2 weeks severance and a week for every additional year, after the first year, a week for every additional year you've been with the company. So for example, a standard corporate severance, if you've been with the company for 2 years, you get your 2 weeks and then 1 additional week for that extra year, as an example. Well, I was going to manifest money, and I was doing the things I know to do, and I got $100,000 tax-free in my bank account. Well, after taxes, so it was more, but after taxes it was 100. But it was from being laid off from my job. So I'm like, oh, that's because you got laid off. Let's back out. What did we just cover? And I was only with this company for 15 months. I was talking to my wife, and she goes, what are we going to do with our backyard? We built a house, and we had 6 months for the HOA to put in something, and we couldn't afford a pool. And pools are twice now what they were when we built our last one. And I said, I wouldn't be able to, we can't afford one if it was 2 years ago prices. She's like, maybe we can manifest a pool. I'm like, all right, let's do what we know to do. So we started leaning into it. I'm so grateful I have a pool. There's a whole thing with how to do all that. But anyway, she came home almost a week later in tears from a lunch with an older relative. And I was like, what's going on? She goes, I think we just manifested a pool. I said, what are you talking about? She said, I was sitting there, I'm having lunch. And he goes, you know, are you guys going to get a pool? She goes, no, we can't afford it. It's fine. We're going to just do some pavers and some grass or something. I want to buy you a pool.
Yeah.
No, you're not going to buy us a pool. No, really, about a week ago, I started thinking about you guys. There's no reason this person should be thinking about a pool for us. Do you understand? And he said, no, I don't know. I just keep thinking about it. I should buy you a pool. I don't know why, but I'm 75 years old. I have 2 houses and no mortgage. And yeah, I'm going to have a will, but I started thinking about, like, do I want to enjoy any of it now, watching somebody benefit from the fruits of it now? Like, please let me do this for you. She goes, well, let me talk to Paul, but okay. And it was like, what? And so, again, it's crazy. I could tell you a dozen stories. Shoes. Here we wear shoes. That was a test. That was a test. Actually, most people failed. But no, like, anybody ever been to the Renaissance Festival?
Yeah.
I went to the Renaissance Festival, and I was doing some work in my office. Wife and kids were in the car, and she's like, are you coming out? We're ready to go. I was like, okay. And I run by, we've got a little shoe rack there by the garage door, and I grabbed some sneakers, and I got in the car, and we shot all the way out there. We went to leave, and went to put on some shoes, and I said, all right, give me a second to put my sneakers on. And I was like, oh no. I grabbed my wife's shoes. We both have black sneakers with white soles. Now you say, oh, were they close? No. I wear a size 12. She wears a size 9.5 women's. These are not close.
Yeah.
These aren't even kind of close. I started to try to put it on. I was like, maybe I can push the heel down, wear them like flip-flops or something. And it's like, no, that's not going to work. I was like, yeah, there's no point. I literally am going to have to drop you guys off and drive home and get shoes and come back. I guess I'd meet up with you. And my daughter goes, why don't you try to manifest it? And I thought, what the hell? And so I did. I was kind of doing my thing or whatever. Again, you may laugh. Because one of the reasons why this is important, I've got a few other stories like that, is it's not just about manifesting and people will come to you and things, they will, but you literally can change things at a material level. That's a whole different level of stuff. And I can prove it. You don't even have to believe me. And I went to put this shoe on and it fit. And I don't mean, here's the thing, it shouldn't even fit with my toes curled up, but they weren't even curled up. How's that possible? I rolled around on bark chips for 3 hours. Comfortably. I didn't even have a blister. That doesn't make sense. They don't fit me now. It's crazy. So the reality is, life can be whatever you want. And if you say, well, I don't know about all that, if the way you're rocking is great, then keep going. But now that I've learned these things, I don't ever want to turn back. And it's my mission to just try to help people. And that's what I'm doing. I share with you, I've come up with something that I'm calling the Transcendence Blueprint. I've got a book coming out called It's Never Too Late to Become What You Could Have Been. And walking through how to clear the mechanism and do the somatic healing and feel and process all your stuff. How to get out of death by 1,000 cuts. Because you can deal with heavy trauma, but day-to-day stuff will destroy you too. Are you one that's caught up in self-doubt, or worry, well, I worry about my kids. Still F you up. Are you quick? My thing was quick to anger, frustration. I don't know anything else. Like a situation, it's common with ADHD. A situation that somebody else might go, well, that sucks. I'm like, God damn it. It's a different level of emotional dysregulation. Working through that and being able to get to a point where you can manage through those things, and then raising your overall energy and vibrations through opening your energy centers, through meditation, doing energy work, and then coming in and doing the manifestation stuff. Because trauma is stored in the body, not in the brain. It's in your body. That's why I thought it was great. Last week we talked about somatic work, because that's where it rests. So if you're doing working with a psychiatrist, that's fine. I see one. I still take one medicine out of the 7 I was taking. But the body work stuff is huge, because that's where it lives. Everything else is just a symptom. And then turning up your energy centers in meditation. And if you have any issues with in your life with people or relationships or whatever, you can tune into these things to find out where you have energetic defects. You can prove chakras exist. They run along the central nervous system, up and down the spinal column, and you know how we know they exist? Because if you have a physical tissue dysfunction that's related to an energy center, an energy worker that's in a good can do work on you, and the tissue will restore circulation. Bloating, inflammation, and swelling will reduce. How would that be possible otherwise? It's not. That's how we can prove it's real. And manifesting, that's the pool. It got finished 2 weeks ago. I kid you not. And again, it's not, I didn't do anything. Like we just said, this is what we want. We want to help. We want to do this for our family. We want to do this. And somebody showed up and said, I feel compelled to do this for you. I'm launching programs for work. I manifest stuff that I'm even trying to. I had 2 people approach me a few weeks ago. One said, I have a podcast for people with inspiring stories. I don't know this guy. He goes, do you have an inspiring story you want to be on my podcast for all my listeners? I have a few. The same day someone reached out to me and said, I'm launching these programs, and I'm doing ads and marketing. And he said, I just paid 10,000 pounds, he's in London, to learn to do YouTube digital ads. Do you happen to have any programs that maybe I could do some free ad work for you in exchange for a review? I'm new, so I don't have anything. I'd love to get some testimonials. Sure. It's a way of being where things just kind of happen for you. And it's so powerful. And so my current initiatives right now, I've got the books coming out, Transforming Your Career Life Coaching Journey for Corporate Professionals. I play big in the corporate space, and I'm trying to bring some of this mindfulness stuff to the corporate sect, which is probably on the other end of the spectrum traditionally, right? As part of another program. And It's Never Too Late to Become What You Could Have Been. It lays out the blueprint. And I'm working on a TEDx talk. I'm working with a company that said, this has legs. We guarantee you will get a TED Talk, and we'll help you do it. And I said, okay. So they're working with me on that. And so that's been pretty cool. It might be 90 days, might be 6 months. And then I've got this career mastery program helping people get into jobs where they feel more sense of purpose, move up, make more money. And that's another thing. I came from a place where that program, I was unemployed. 11 years ago, I was unemployed. I had 3 young children between the ages of 1, 2.5, and 4, and a wife that didn't work, and I was laid off. And days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, and I felt like a failure as a man, and as a father, and as a provider, and a husband, and I was running out of money, and I didn't know what to do. And I paid some experts to learn how to navigate that. And since then, as I've gone to look for a job 5 different times in the last 10 years, I've been able to get a job within 4 weeks flat every time, making more money with more responsibility, and I triple my income in an 8-year period. That's what I teach in that program. And I had the mindfulness stuff in too. And then the energy awakening workshops. We're going to start doing workshops in Sedona with somatic work and energy healing and having people go through. And the conversation on that is when I talk to people to say, what have you done the last 20 years that hasn't worked? Oh God, I tried this guru and I read that book and I did this diet and I just couldn't find, I don't know, I just tried so many different things. And I say, well, what would you give to make the next 20 years for you to actually have the answer and be able to have a sense of peace and purpose in your life with a money-back guarantee? Because that's what it is. If you don't feel like after we do this and you go home and we help you, coach you through putting a real plan into place, and you've improved relationships and you're actually attacking your goals and you don't have a sense of what to do and a sense of peace, you get all your money back. Nobody's offering that. I am. They said, yeah, where do I sign up? So it's been really exciting watching all this stuff start, kind of blossom with all these different things. And I really am I just am inspired to want to help people with this stuff. So I'm like, where was this 20 years ago? But if I'm really honest, I don't think I was ready. I think I'd have been too arrogant to go, okay, whatever, man. And so, the last thing I'll share is this. I was asked to speak last night at a different venue. And I got up and I told my story. And I talked about being suicidal. And I talked about doing inner child work. And I talked about a lot of things I talked about here tonight. And afterwards, a bunch of people came up to me to talk to me. And this one woman kind of slid in. And she looked pretty rough. And she had tears in her eyes. And she slipped me this piece of paper. And that's a picture of it. And if you can't read it, it says, "I'm dying, dead inside. Will you help me?" That's what this is about for me. That's all that this is about. And it really was so profound, and it was so humbling, and it really centered me, and it reminded me, because I'm going through so much with my business and my book and all this stuff. It's been very stressful. But it's been wonderful, but it's just a lot. And I was telling my wife, I was like, I've never worked so hard for so little in my life as I'm getting all this launched, but I couldn't feel more rewarded overall. But that really brought it home to me, and it really centered me to go, this is why I'm doing this. And she said, she kind of leaned in and said she had a dog with her. And she goes, I just got this rescue today. She goes, today's the first day in 2 weeks I haven't tried to harm myself because I got the dog to try to help me in the meantime. Can you help me? And I said, I'll share anything that I can from what I know. But that's what this is about for me. I have a sense of purpose today that I've never had. And I'm a pretty purposeful guy. And this is just about trying to make a difference. And I just really wanted people to know, because when I started going through this process, I didn't know what was going on, and it was kind of scary. And I said, if anybody else is going through this and can benefit from going, oh, that's what that is, okay, then I feel like I've done a good job here tonight. The last thing is, you know what a QR code is? We want to get your, oh shoot, you know what? I just realized I am not on Wi-Fi, which is why do they Wi-Fi here, Adam? Yeah. Okay. Is there a password, or can I roll right in? It's just a QR code with a few questions, and you get a free energy work and something else just for submitting. You're just getting some feedback on what people are looking for, because we're going to be pushing some stuff out for free as well, and trying to figure out what people want. Is it Kava Bar or Kava Bar 5G?
I think it's the 5G, search 5G.
It looks like it has a padlock.
Capital M.
I know this is anticlimactic. I appreciate your patience. Go ahead.
Meraki, capital M.
Everybody write it down.
And then it's AZ, capital A.
All lowercase?
Just the M and the A are capital.
Oh, okay.
Meraki, AZ.
See, Meraki AZ, and that's it? All right.
I hope so.
Oh, and you know what? Here's the workaround. I still need to be online to do it. But let's see. Let us just see. Very good. Yeah, so if you wouldn't mind scanning this, we just want your input. Kind of what do you want? Again, we've got the different programs. We're going to push some stuff out, and then I think we've set up where it's like a $250 or $500 value or something, where you get free energy work and some an overview and some templates to help you with applying some of this stuff if you want. But it's just trying to figure out what people have an appetite for and where they want help. So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you for your time. I hope this has made an impact for you, because it really has for me. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.